everyone, spring is finally here and I'm so excited that I come out here almost every day just to see what's changed because a lot's happening every day. As I'm outside, I'm thinking about, okay, I'd like to do more of this thing next year and maybe less of that thing next year, or maybe don't do that again. So I thought I'd just walk you through what I'm thinking about this year in my garden, and you can see what I would keep or kick next year. It was a great year for species tulips this year. I just love species tulips because they bloom earlier and they last longer. When I plant the later blooming tulips, a lot of times after a year or two, the plants have kind of faded out and they don't come back anymore. But some of these I've had for 25 years or more, and so you just really can't beat that as an investment. If you'd like to grow species tulips, look for some with the names Kaufmanniana, Greggii, Clusiana, Chrysantha. Those are some of the species that you might look for in catalogs. And you'll notice that I've left my stems a little bit long above the sedums as I've cleaned up. These are tall sedums. I think this is Matrona probably. And they have hollow stems, and I left them a little tall so that next winter cavity nesting bees can find their way to these hollow stems and make nests there. By a little bit later in the summer, all this foliage will have grown up and you won't even see these stems. This works with other hollow-stemmed perennials like Amsonia, Stokesia, and anything else. All you have to do is just look at the stem and see if it's hollow. I've talked many times about my struggles with rabbits here in my garden, and here's another victim of the rabbits this last winter. This little hydrangea is a newly planted one, and this often happens to our shrubs in the winter. The rabbits just kind of mow them down, and so we need to remember to cage new shrubs. We've had that problem with other new shrubs in the past, and once we've caged them and gotten them to a certain size, then they stop taking so much damage. This oak leaf hydrangea is an example of a plant that I used to have to cage when it was small, but now that it's got some size on it, I don't need to do that anymore. Maybe you're better about this than I am, but every year at the end of the fall, I have lots of pots of plants that friends have given me or that I bought at the garden center and just didn't know where to put them yet. And so it's tough here in Zone 5. Sometimes we get full weeks below zero, and it's really hard on plants that are still in their pots and exposed to those cold temperatures. So we have a big egress window well here where I put all of my plants that are in pots over the winter where they can have a little bit more insulation, and usually they do pretty well. This would work. It doesn't have to be an egress window, by the way. If you'd like to do that in any window, well, you can. And these coral bells actually came out looking better than the ones that I got planted in the ground last summer. In the fall, we always put our pots in the garden. I empty them and turn them over. And usually I put them on bricks to keep them up off of the ground and keep them out of contact with the soil moisture. But we were in a hurry last year and it just didn't happen. And so the pots all got set right directly on the ground. And as you can see, it's kind of messy. It makes them pretty dirty in the spring to try to clean up. And that's not my favorite thing. But the other problem is that a lot of my terracotta pots took up too much moisture, and so I had more cracking and flaking than I really like to have on those. So I definitely will be putting them up on bricks next year to keep them off the ground. When I'm cleaning up in spring, I always have this compunction to try to clean up a whole bed and then check it off my list and move on. And it really would be better if I went to the things that emerge first in spring and clean them up first. So I did not clean these Solomon seal up, and now the stems are all coming up, and I can't rake in here because it will just shred the stems. So now I have to sort of carefully pick out the stems that I don't want in here. And I mean, truth be told, if I didn't do it at all, they would come up, and by summer you'd never know the difference. But I like it to be a little tidier than that in spring. So here I am pulling stems out kind of carefully to clean it up. So I have a city yard waste bin that I put a lot of my garden debris in, but when I have filled it up for the week, because in the spring that often happens, then we just make a pile and mow over the rest of it with the lawnmower and spread it back on the garden. When you have a lot of stems to clean up in spring, cutting them all back with the hand pruners can hurt your wrists because of all the repetitive motion. And that's why I really love this power tool from Works. It's a battery powered tool that has a hedge trimmer on it and also a grass clipper. And it makes it so easy to just whip right through big chunks of grasses like this, or even thin stemmed shrubs and perennial stems. Well, with so many things changing every day in the spring, who knows what new ideas I might have tomorrow for next year.